Duce is back.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And ladies and gentlemen, we got some very nice news yesterday, and that is that Duce Chestnut is returning to Syracuse with one more year of eligibility. Of course, what's the source on that, you may ask? Well, it was himself. He put out a statement online saying that he is returning to Syracuse. And on today's mini podcast, we are talking about the two things that Duce Chestnut brings back to the Orange. All right, he's an experienced defensive back that can start, and he's also incredibly versatile. Now, this is an expected move, all right? It's still great news, and that's why we're talking about it here. But this was expected because if we're being fair about Duce Chestnut, I didn't necessarily think he was ready for the NFL. I think he needs one more year in college before he can get to the NFL potentially. And number two, he's been in the transfer portal before. He's gone elsewhere before. In 2023, he was with LSU. But overall, this is just my gut feeling on this. I haven't spoken to Duce Chestnut personally, but my gut says that Duce Chestnut's happy with Syracuse. He likes the program. He likes Fran Brown. He committed back to him. And now he's returning for one more season, as myself and many others expected. But it's great news. It's terrific, okay? The number one thing that he brings to Syracuse is that he brings experience as a starting defensive back. We're going to get to the versatility in the second part of this mini podcast, but that experience is crucial for the Orange. Last season, he started and played in all 13 games for Syracuse, and he had 1 interception, 5 passes defended, and 62 tackles, and he played mostly safety throughout the entire season. Him and fellow defensive back, currently a safety right now, but we'll see what happens later on down the road. But him and defensive back Devin Grant figure to be the two leaders on Syracuse's defense, particularly on the back end. Those two guys are the leaders. And outside of Devin Grant and Duce Chestnut, the Orange, as of right now, things can certainly change this offseason, but as of right now, Syracuse projects to be very, very young, particularly in the defensive back room. They got Duce Chestnut, great. You got Devin Grant, great. But outside of that, who else do they have that really has a lot of experience, who actually has started games before? Who? Davien Kerr down the stretch, but he's going to be a true sophomore next season. McDaniels certainly got some playing time down the stretch. He's going to be a true sophomore next year. Who knows? Maybe some true freshmen in Syracuse's 2025 class get some playing time. Demetres Samuel, a consensus 4-star recruit. I'm excited to watch him play. And also Kaylib Singleton, a Rivals 4-star recruit. I want to say it was Rivals that gave Kaylib Singleton a 4-star as a corner. So maybe he cracks the lineup at some point next year. And I'm probably missing a name or two here or there, but those are just some examples of players without a ton of experience. The reason why experience is so important, not only because they've been there and done that in college, right? Duce Chestnut and Devin Grant, but also because, look, these young kids, they need to learn. They need to grow. And it's important to have a player who has been in college for many years like Devin Grant or Duce Chestnut be able to kind of show you the ropes a little. It's nice to have that mentor. And so overall, not only is Duce Chestnut a solid player, but he's also experienced. He's been in college for a while, and that's important, especially with the other young players that are in Syracuse's secondary. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse. And folks, on this mini podcast, the second of 2 mini podcasts this evening, we're We're talking about Duce Chestnut's return to Syracuse and the fact that he brings experience to the room. Now, coming up, we're going to talk about the fact that he's really versatile, and who knows, someone could be moving to corner, someone could be moving to safety. We don't know, but we'll talk about it next on the Locked On Syracuse podcast. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now, Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed, all while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now this is Taxes. IntuitTurboTax.com. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy, and one of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Now Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events. With their new feature, Game Time Picks, this feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals and great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And recently, I was looking for tickets to an upcoming Broadway show in New York. Using the Game Time app with Game Time Picks, I found amazing deals and could even see the view from my seat before buying. The super deal was particularly impressive, offering great seats at an unbeatable price. Plus, the app's all-in pricing feature shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The best part, when I won, I got paid instantly. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Not only does Duce Chestnut provide a ton of experience to Syracuse's defensive back room, he also provides versatility. Let's rewind a little bit, shall we? I don't think it's a secret that it appears Syracuse football is looking to add at least one defensive back in the transfer portal. And when we had on Mike McAllister, 24/7 Sports Syracuse insider, on the podcast on Thursday night, he essentially said exactly that Syracuse is looking to add at least one more defensive back in the transfer portal, and it's kind of needed, as we have gone over here on the podcast. Elijah Clark is in the NFL draft. Clarence Lewis is in the NFL draft, and they're out of eligibility anyway. And then Syracuse lost a couple of starting corners from last season, at least from when they were healthy, in Marcellus Barnes and Jaden Bellamy. So clearly, there's a lot of production that is being lost. And no matter how much you believe in the young guys, and I do believe in some of the young players, and that some will eventually step up and take on big roles, in order to really feel comfortable about this secondary, Syracuse probably needs to add on one more experienced player in the portal. And they've been connected to several defensive backs, Sasha Garcia, Richard Toney, but those guys committed elsewhere. All right, they committed elsewhere. On that podcast that I did with Mike McAllister, he mentioned that if Syracuse looks to add a safety, because they could add a safety, that they could move Devin Grant to corner. Let's now fast forward to Duce Chestnut, because a lot of people pointed this out in the comments section of that podcast on Thursday with Mike, and that is Duce Chestnut also played corner. Duce Chestnut was an all-conference corner for Syracuse in 2021 and in 2022. So, if Syracuse adds a safety in the transfer portal, because they could, they do have that versatility, not only with Devin Grant, but also with Duce Chestnut. Now, if I had to guess, I would say that if Syracuse is looking to move one of the two, I'm going to guess Devin Grant, which is what Mike McAllister said as well. And the reason is because if you recall last year, in the very beginning of the season, they tried putting Devin Grant at corner. They tried doing it, and then they ultimately moved him to safety, or moved him back to safety, his more natural position. Whereas a guy like Duce Chestnut, he played the entire year as a safety instead of a corner. But the whole point of this is to demonstrate that, hey, with Duce Chestnut returning, he provides a ton of versatility. If Syracuse needs to, they could look to move him back to corner. Same thing with Devin Grant. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below about what you think Duce Chestnut provides Syracuse football. As far as what is coming up on the podcast, tomorrow night, Syracuse basketball is hosting Louisville at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's a big-time ACC matchup. Louisville, a program certainly back on the rise after a couple of really, really bad seasons under Kenny Payne. Really bad years. Appears they got the right coach in Pat Kelsey. And we'll find out if Syracuse, on a 2-game win streak, if they can make that a 3-game win streak against a much better Louisville team at 7 p.m. Eastern inside the Dome. And guess what? There will be a full post-game reaction podcast here. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know right away when I'm dropping the next podcast. And I will see you all again soon.